I have all the same struggles, the same anxieties that everybody has. It's the nature of the human being. And the key is how we work through them and how we stay with it.
This is Dr. Wesley Northey. I have the privilege, honor, and just the deep gratitude today of having a very special guest. As I started my morning, I was getting ready to leave home this morning, telling my children goodbye. And I told my youngest son, who's 4, I said, Daddy has a special day at work today. I get to talk to somebody very special today. And he said, "Oh, who's that?" And I said, "Well, it was a man that was actually partially responsible for helping to change the world." And he thought, "Okay, well, good luck, Daddy. I hope it goes well." And to be honest, I don't think that that's any type of overstatement by any means. This is none other than Howard Behar here with me today, folks, and talk about a true servant leader and just a really exemplary an example of what servant leadership really is and what can happen when its concepts are applied in business, but also in life. And so I just want to welcome you today. Howard, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Howard is the former president of Starbucks International. He came into Starbucks when I believe it was 28 stores. And after over 2 decades of working with them, applying principles of servant leadership, he left when it was 15,000. That just continued to grow. And he's continuing the good work that he was doing then. He's doing it today and still impacting lives around the world. He has an incredible book called "It's Not About the Coffee," where he discusses the 10 principles of personal leadership. But Howard, I just want to jump in and really dive in directly to what servant leadership really means. I believe it's actually more important than ever that leaders understand and recognize those concepts that you really instilled in Starbucks because of the last 2+ years of where businesses have been, organizations have been, and where individuals have been in their lives coming out of the pandemic. And what it really means now for organizations that are bringing their people back into the workplace. That's something that's very important to me right now, is really connecting with those leaders of organizations that this is obviously still popular to connect digitally via Zoom, but a lot of organizations and leaders now are bringing their people back to the workplace and they're reconnecting. And there's some really key elements, I think, that can be missed, mostly because the efficiency of us being able to connect via meetings on Zoom and other formats has been through the roof. But people are used to working in their PJs now,
Yeah.
and of course, digitally, we don't have the same subtleties that we have when we're together in person, connecting in person. And so I just want to start there. What are some recommendations that you might have that other leaders can benefit from in connecting people? Some of the strategies that worked for you in Starbucks and how that might apply today for them.
Well, the core idea behind servant leadership is that as leaders, we're here to serve, and we're here to in essence, we're here to help our people grow as human beings, to become better professionals, to achieve the goals that they want to achieve in their lives, and by so doing, they're willing to help us. And that's kind of how it works. And if it doesn't, obviously, as a leader of an organization, you get something back for that, right? But the context of it is that you serve first. You don't wait for somebody to serve you. And the old style leadership is you get hired and you're there to serve your boss. And that's not really the way that I think the world works the best. And so, that's how certainly we tried to lead at Starbucks in the time that I was there. And I think that it works and it's the right thing to do. And, servant leadership is not really about leadership. It's about a way of life. It's about a way that you live your life. And whether it's families, friends, in your work environment, in your church environment, it doesn't make any difference where it is. You're there to help other people. And that's why we're put on this earth, is to serve others. And in so doing, we serve ourselves.
I couldn't agree more. I love that description, of servant leadership not being exclusive to the workplace. It's really a way of life. And I was first introduced to the concept of servant leadership in terms of personal life and what that really meant for me as a man, as a husband, as a father, and then later its impact in the workplace. And I think, I couldn't agree more there with you that it's really a choice. It's what we're doing, those decisions that we're making day to day behind the scenes, really when others aren't necessarily watching us. Something that I have noticed with business leaders in their understanding of what servant leadership is, and I'm sure you've heard this argument plenty of times, but it's perceived sometimes as being passive or serving others as something that's weak, and I just want you to really articulate why that is so false and
Totally
incorrect.
untrue. Servant leadership is about performance. Look, it's about getting the job done. And, the way we serve others is by living up to our commitments, right? When we make a commitment to do something, then we get it done, or we let them know early why we're not and ask for help. But no, servant leadership is not this mushy, well, everybody's nice, pat everybody on the back, everybody gets a trophy. No, it's about performance. Here, I give it to you in the best way I know. So you get married, you have, and we each have roles in our lives, in our marriages to do different things, right? Some of the most basic things like taking out the garbage or cooking dinners or whatever it happens to be. Well, whatever your role is, whatever you've decided together, your role is going to be, which is taking out the garbage. I'll take that one thing. Then performance is doing your job, is taking out the garbage, right? Putting in the garbage. When you commit that you're going to be home, right, at a certain time, have dinner with your family, then you've made that commitment. If you make a commitment to go to your son or daughter's soccer game, then that you've made that commitment, and that's servant leadership at its finest. It's about
100%.
getting the job done, but in a company setting, it's about getting the job done not on the backs of people, but with people. Performance comes not on the backs of people, but with people. But performance matters. Without performance, you got nothing, right? And that's the way of life. We don't always like that, as human beings. But the truth is, we're always getting measured, aren't we? You get up in the morning
Absolutely.
and you go to the bathroom and you leave the toilet seat up, right? Right? You hear about it, don't you?
That's
Right?
right.
Or you leave your socks on the floor, or whatever it happens to be. So you get measured all the time. And so at work, we're getting measured all the time. We're measuring all the time. We measure people that we work with. We measure our bosses. We measure our coworker. We measure, about how they're doing. And that's the way it is. And so servant leadership, at its core is about serving others, but in the journey of performance.
Absolutely. You're right about that too. Aren't we always being evaluated
Yeah,
based on our
always.
performance
Yeah.
all the time, in all of our relationships,
Yeah.
really, the ones that matter most to us,
Yeah.
certainly. I think one of the challenges, and you might agree, I have this saying to serve with humility and lead with confidence and
Yeah.
ultimately live with purpose. And I think that's one of the difficult aspects of servant leadership, maybe for some leaders that focus more heavily on the title or the position themselves rather than the practice of it and the connection of it and what those requirements are. And I think the humility piece, when paired with confidence, is a difficult thing for others to grasp. And I just want to know your thoughts really about what it means to serve with humility. My understanding of being a humble person isn't necessarily to think lowly of yourself or degrade yourself or be passive, but being willing to put others before you and being able to serve at a high level others. And then, like I said, the contrast of leadership really requires confidence. And so if you could speak to that, your thoughts on that, just again, sort of that balance between being able to serve others, whether it's in life, with the people that matter most to you, recognizing, how you show up to serve as a great husband, as a good father, a good grandfather as well, but also a good leader in business, serving with humility. and then leading with confidence. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that you have to love yourself uh, kind of unconditionally before you can love others unconditionally,
Mm,
right? And so I think that's a big part of it. But loving yourself is still a humbling act, is a humble act because you have you have to be able to forgive yourself, for the mistakes that you make and the things that you do in life. And so I have my mission statement goes like this. Every day I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then for others. The reason why I say self first is what I've learned after living for 77 years. If you're not okay with you, very difficult to help somebody else. So, humbleness is, you're right, it's not about thinking less of yourself or about this idea that you're less than. So that, no, being humble is also thinking highly of yourself,
mm,
putting other people first,
wow.
loving yourself enough that you do put other people first. And I have an affirmation that I've used for 50 years, and it goes like this: I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. And so, it all goes together. You love yourself as you're humble yourself before others.
Wow.
you know? So
Wow. No, I love that. That's, that description too. It's, by doing that, by actually practicing that, loving yourself like you described unconditionally, it allows yourself to love others, and leadership really becomes the fruit of that,
yeah,
doesn't it? I mean, you
yeah,
really become a leader that other people want to follow because it comes from a genuine place, and I think too often we come from a place where we want to make a certain impression, or we want to act a certain way, or things like that, especially when we're in positions of leadership, instead of just loving genuinely, really who people are. It doesn't mean you always have to like what they're doing
no,
or approve of it, but it does mean that you can love humans, and
because they're worthy of love because they're human beings.
that's right.
But you
That's
don't have to
absolutely
agree with what everybody says. We all have differences, and we struggle with those differences. And the key is
absolutely.
not the key is not sitting in judgment.
Mm, wow. Wow. Yeah. Gosh, we can really get in our own way when we start judging,
Yeah.
when we begin to judge others. Tell me a little bit, Howard.
And
I
by the
love
way,
this.
we're all guilty. So
Oh, absolutely.
you have to
Absolutely.
be able to forgive yourself for those frailties we have as human beings.
100%. Tell me a little bit. I heard you describe this about the principles that you continue to live by, and including the goals that you and your wife set still. And one of those really caught my attention, and it was going from one of those categories being career to now what you've described as being life's work.
Right.
And I just love that. It just personally touches my heart, because isn't that what the work is that we do? It's just integrated with, like you described earlier, who we are, how we show up as a way of life. And just tell me a little bit about your life today, what servant leadership means in that category, as far as your life's work today. To me, being here on this conversation, you're continuing to serve others. You're continuing to show up as a servant leader. So just share with some of these listeners and viewers what that means today for you.
Well, my life's work. Tell you a story. So when I retired from Starbucks, I used to always tell people at Starbucks, you are not Starbucks and Starbucks is not you. You're a whole person before you came to Starbucks. You're a whole person when you leave Starbucks, hopefully with a few more tools in your tool belt. But you're still who you are. You're still a whole person. But yet I fell into the trap when I retired from Starbucks. I fell in a trap. My whole identity was tied up into Starbucks. And when I retired, I went through depression for a couple of years. It was really, I just couldn't get out of bed, so to speak. I did,
Wow.
of course, but until finally I was laying on the sofa one day, and I, and and I was actually not thinking my life was worth living. That's how down I was.
Wow.
And and all of a sudden these words came into my head. Howard, your life's work is still your life's work. Your life's work is still your life's work. And it was an aha experience. And that, oh, that's true. It just was going to be in a different place, a different way. But my life's work was still to nurture and inspire the human spirit. And that hadn't changed. It's just that I wasn't going to be doing it with inside an organization, and I wasn't going to get feedback like I used to get. I had to trust. I had to trust the world, that the world would appreciate what I was doing, even if it was just, it was one, and it was one person at a time. That's all I could do. And so, and within a month, I was back on track, and I was finding ways to do it. Podcasts. I wrote a couple of books. I talk to everybody that wants to talk to me. That's how I live my life. And so, yeah, it's true that for me, it wasn't about my career, you know, it was about my life's work. Uh, and that's what I try to focus on. So, I try to live my life by what I call my 6 Ps. First P is everything I do has a purpose greater than myself, which is primarily about serving others. The second P is if I have a purpose greater than myself, then I darn well better be passionate about it. Better give me energy and get me up in the morning and, push me along that pathway. And so then the third P is persistence. Everything in life takes persistence. All of us are traveling down the rivers in our lives, right? And we get on that river, and all of a sudden, boom, we hit a rock. We never even saw it. And the rock was sitting below the surface. We didn't know it was there, and we hit it. But it was unexpected. But we got to figure out a way around it, over it, under it, through it, or whatever. Then there are the rocks that people tell us about. They're saying, hey, be careful. When you go around that bend, there's a rock right in the middle of the river. Watch that one, kind of slip off to the right of the. And I don't care how many people tell us, we still hit that darn rock. Right?
Isn't that true? It's
Yeah,
so true.
and we've got to do the same thing, over, around it, through it. And then the rocks that get us the most are the ones we put there ourselves. We're traveling down the river, and all of a sudden we put a rock there, and as we put it there, we hit it. And we get, in essence, we get in our own way. And so, persistence pays. You got to stay with it. You got to get through those rocks. And then the fourth P is patience. Nothing in life comes in the time frame that you want it. Things take longer. No, if you're leading a team, your team doesn't always get everything you're talking about or working on in the time frame that you get it. You've had a lot longer to think about it than they have. And so you have to have patience with them. But the most important person you have to have patience with is yourself. You got to be patient, because it's not always coming as fast as you want it. And that's the way life is. Then the fifth P is performance. Getting the job done matters. No excuses to yourself or others will change that. You either get the job done or you don't. You either pick up your underwear off the floor or you don't. You either take out the garbage or you don't. You either treat all people with respect and dignity or you don't, right? You either produce the results that you've committed to producing or you don't. And so performance matters. Our commitments to others matter, and our commitments to ourselves matter. Again, we have to perform for ourselves. Every night before I go to bed, I look in the mirror and I say, Howard, how'd you do today? And for me, it's how did I do today against my values, my mission statement, and my 6 Ps. And then the final P is people. 6 P is people. There's no rule that any of us will have in life that isn't about serving others. And you got to get comfortable with that. It doesn't mean you're not serving yourself too. It's not my point. We do, but we serve ourselves by serving others.
Those are excellent. I was familiar with your 6 Ps before, and they're incredibly powerful. I hope anyone that's heard those for the first time is inspired to write some of their own. You're continuing to practice your values and your mission and applying those Ps, and you have clarity with them. I think that's what a lot of folks are missing today. And you continue to have vision with how to apply these in your own life, those 6 Ps in particular. And I want to touch on something you mentioned just briefly, but falling into that trap of depression, when we lose our sense of self, our sense of identity, I really feel like, well, I know this to be true, that so many people across the globe are going through that today.
Yeah.
that our sense of identity has just been shaken to its core. Our foundations in our personal lives and our professional lives have just been completely flipped upside down over the last couple of years. I want to share with you too, Howard. I don't think I had a chance to tell you when we spoke a few weeks ago, but I was in a similar place, a very, very low place, thinking those same types of thoughts that maybe the world would just be better without me. This was about 15 years ago when I hit the lowest point in my life. And I was blessed with a second chance at life. And after that, it was just that every day was a gift. Have to make the very most out of it. And went from being a high school dropout. I was actually dropped out in 8th grade. I had suffered from severe depression and many other challenges in life. And became a father very, very young. That became my purpose in life, was to be a good dad. I didn't know how to do that. And when I lost that sense of mission and being able to fulfill that purpose in my life, that's what really brought me to that low state. And fast forward over a decade, went back to school, earned a doctorate later, become a good man, a good family man, good husband, a good father, all these wonderful things. And I'll tell you what, this was about 4 years ago. I was sitting at home and I thought, why do I still feel this way about me? I thought I was doing everything right. Look at all these accomplishments and these achievements, and I have a life that I never dreamed would be possible. But I really felt like deep down, I still wouldn't be good enough, that no matter what I did, wouldn't be enough. And a short time after that, I was listening to a playlist with my headphones, and a voice came on one of the tracks. And it was Bishop T.D. Jakes at the time, but he said, "You need a new mind." And it was the first time in my life that I stopped everything I was doing and began to allow him to mentor me and coach me around mindset and what it would mean to have a new mindset. And I discovered that purpose really begins with mindset, our sense of purpose. Too often we think that it's something out here, right? Externally, that we can achieve or accomplish something and we can just take purpose for ourselves. And people overlook that it's really about what we give. And purpose really comes from how we serve and contribute to something greater outside of ourselves. And that's what really helped me kind of rewire some of that thinking and get out of that trap of depression, was discovering that sense of purpose and claiming the new identity of being a servant leader. And really, once you identify and articulate your purpose that you have, then you can serve it to the highest level. And I just love how you described that it didn't actually have anything to do with your accomplishments or achievements with Starbucks, with the grandeur of it all. It had everything to do with your ability to serve others. And I just really want to tell you how much I appreciate that.
It's my life-giving substance. It's, I still struggle. I still have anxiety. I still have bouts of depression. It's been a lifelong journey for me. And, but when I get the energy from others. And
Mm.
so that's why I say you're serving others and you serve yourself. And so that's important to me.
No, it's incredible. And again, being open like that and sharing that type of thing, I don't know if a lot of people are aware, and this was something that actually helped me. This is one of the intentions of my show and the work that I do now, the show being Purpose Mindset, and the work with servantleader.com. But it's really what you're describing is something that touches so many people's lives in different seasons of life.
Yeah.
We all go through these ups and downs. And the ability for a listener or a viewer right now to know that someone like you that's had the life that you live, on the outside, we look at it and we say, you must have it all made, right? There's no more struggles. You've got a beautiful family,
That's
this
the
vast
opposite.
career.
That's just so not true. I used to think that exact same thing. I said, well, when I get to be in my 60s, I'll be there. You're never there. I'm 77 going on 78. I am not there. I have all the same struggles, the same anxieties that everybody has. It's the nature of the human being. And the key is how we work through them and how we stay with it. And it's not every day, I don't believe in this theory that we're striving for happiness. Happiness is fleeting. Happiness kind of comes, it goes. We're striving for fulfillment. And fulfillment means that you're going to experience happiness, joy, sorrow, pain, discomfort, defeat, achievement, all of the things of life. That's fulfillment, because you have to, in order to understand life and be okay with life, you have to have been dealt with all of it and understand that, yeah, are there times of happiness? Yeah. But, I was reading an article by Arthur Brooks, you know, and he was talking about satisfaction.
Hmm.
And one of the stories he was telling was about an ancient king that was from the Middle East, and how it wasn't what's so ancient, 1700s, and he was looking at his life. He had 50 years of leading his people and his country, right? He had all the wealth you could possibly imagine, everything you could possibly imagine. Achievement, his enemies feared him, his friends, his allies revered him. You know, he had everything. But he said he was thinking about his life, and he said, there have been 14 times in my life when I've been satisfied and happy. That's as he thought back over his life. And that's kind of the way that it is. Yet we always expect every day is going to be this happiness, this pure, just the sun is out and there's joy all around. It's not the way that it is. Think about the people in Ukraine right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You what joy and happiness do they have right now? Hard for them to have, find any. You know.
It's true. You're so right. This is actually, I wanted to ask you about this specifically. This is a principle I teach others in a coaching practice that I have, but it's that description and misconception that so many people have, that we're seeking things to bring happiness, right? So often in life, things that bring, like you said, just this temporary feeling, right? That maybe it comes from something we buy or purchase,
Right.
or something that we get, or maybe it's an accomplishment. For us high achievers and high performers, we have that brief sense of, all right, I did it,
And then
and
it's
then
gone. 2
and
years
then it's
later, it's
gone.
gone. Most of the time you don't even get a week. I buy
Right.
I like cars. Okay, I admit I like cars. I like
Yeah.
nice cars, and I always have. Even when I couldn't afford, I'd buy a cheap nice car. But but uh, but I used to think that they're going to give me happiness. They don't. It doesn't even last 2 days. Yeah, it doesn't mean that I don't go get another car if I want one, right? If I like, but it's not. I don't look for it to bring me happiness. I look for it to be fun to drive once in a while, but that's all.
Sure.
That's another piece of what Arthur Brooks was talking about. We're striving for the satisfaction, but those times are fewer and farther in between, and they don't last nearly as long. And that's why the key is serving others.
That's right. No, absolutely. I think also, like you said, one thing that can kind of reframe it for ourselves also is just setting appropriate expectations as well. Like you described, being able to just enjoy cars. That's wonderful. It's a great thing to have, to have a passion like that. But when we set ourselves up for disappointment, when we expect these things in our life to bring something deeper, and really, fulfillment is the perfect description for what it is that I believe all people really desire. We really desire to be fulfilled, rather, in the deepest possible sense. And like you said, that comes from all the ups and the downs. It comes from the highs and the lows. When we have a fulfilling life, it's that we're able to experience, maybe mourning when the season is right in our life, and because we experience things like sadness, it doesn't mean that we can't be fulfilled people. And I think we put so much dependence on that feeling, that superficial, fleeting feeling of being happy. And we expect so many, to be honest, I think it's why so many relationships struggle as well. So many people think that the other person's responsibility is to make them happy. And that's not, I'm not sure how long you and your wife have been married, but you could probably speak to some success strategies there. But it's certainly not going to be that you expect her to make you happy, or that she expects you to make her happy, that there's a deeper sense of fulfillment. Same with parenting, with
Yeah.
being a father. My kiddos, the fulfillment that I get from being a dad comes from being there, even in the challenges,
Yeah.
even when they're meeting resistance, and they might be struggling, and we go through that together, and we can navigate through life together. That's really what makes life fulfilling, and I think that's what we desire more than anything. um, you know and in the workplace, again, with your experience with leading others and in business, I think that so many of those qualities are left out of the equation, where we keep things on this superficial level with maybe colleagues or coworkers or the team that we're leading or even the clients that we're serving. And I had a really deep, visceral way of experiencing this. And so I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I got to spend a lot of time in rehab and working in hospitals. And I heard you mention a story that's similar, but I had many opportunities to spend time with people in their last moments. And whether those were folks that had lived a long, happy, healthy life, and it was just part of that process,
Yeah.
to very young people that had made a lot of poor choices, and it's hard to see that, but at the same time, it gives perspective around what it really means to connect to others, and what we value and what we appreciate and what really brings fulfillment from life. And when we're overly seeking the things that on the outset make us happy, sometimes those lead to addictions, and sometimes those lead to things that are very destructive and unhealthy for us, and it deteriorates our quality of life altogether. And I wanted to bring that up because I did hear you share a story about visiting with a young man. I believe he was important to in your daughter's life,
That's right.
and yeah, what that really meant for you. And go ahead and share that story if you would.
He was one of my daughter's best friends, and he had a drug problem, and he kept working on it. And he was a wonderful young guy. I mean, he was just had a great heart, and but he was constantly down about himself, suffered from depression, and he thought drugs were the way out. And one day I'm on a trip with my wife, and I get this call from my daughter, and said he's in the hospital and I think he's dying. And I said, okay, we're on our way. And we weren't, fortunately, we weren't that far away, maybe 100 miles. And we got there, and there he was in the room, and he was laying on the bed. And I asked my daughter, I said, can I have a few minutes alone with him? And so I just started talking to him. And I said, you've been a good person. You can let go. It's okay. His brain was by that time not functioning very well. And I said, it's okay for you to let go. We love you, and you don't have to stay for anybody, you know. And I watched him die. I watched him just stop breathing and go. But it was almost like he did let go, and it was okay for him to do it. And it was hard for me. I mean, it was really hard for my daughter to watch that happen, because it was not, we tried to help him, and he couldn't help himself. And it was a sad moment. But I never experienced. I had a grandmother and a father that died, but I never had anybody, a young person, die like that right in front of me. And that was a very humbling experience. And until you experience that, that's part of a fulfilling life. You you have to kind of experience that, and understand it, and be okay with it. As much as you may be sad about it, right? You still have to be able to deal with it, because it's all around us. And just because his life ended then doesn't mean that his life ended. His life didn't end in our minds. You know, he was always with us. Every time, I'm trying to remember the name of he loved to pick these flowers that grew on trees, and that was a really great smell. And every season he would go do that. And
Wow.
every time I see those flowers, I think of him.
Wow, that's incredible. Um, I mean, just the ability that you have had to be present with him, and to just have the awareness, that he needed somebody like you in his life in that moment.
He needed to know
And
it was okay. I told him how that I loved him, and that how good a person he was, and how we always appreciated him and we'll always remember him, and I'm sure he heard it.
Wow. No, I know he did. I
Yeah,
know he did.
he had parents that didn't care. Yeah, that kind of disowned him, and so he didn't have that at the end of his life. So I felt that he needed to know that he was loved.
Wow. And you shared, yeah, I mean, you shared that love with him. You were with him there, and
And we
you know,
don't need
we
to wait till somebody's on their deathbed to do that. We
that's
can
right.
do that every day with the people that we know and we love, and let them know,
That's
let them
absolutely
know
right.
how much they love
Wow.
you and why. You know,
That's right. Well, and expressing love is a verb,
yeah.
really showing up with your actions, and that's something also I wanted to ask specifically is I've heard you describe it as compassionate emptiness, but really share that with us, the contrast sort of being actively listening, intently listening versus that tendency to just want to solve problems and
Well, I was, anybody that's this is a male disease, right? We want to solve problems. We're problem solvers, right? And we're hunters and whatever we are, and we want to solve problems. So my wife used to come home and tell me about her day and all the issues she was having. I immediately went into problem solving mode, right? Well, what did you do? Did you do this? Did you do that? Right? And I do the same thing with my kids until finally one day I was reading this book. I don't even remember where it was. And it had this quote, compassionate emptiness. And then it went on to describe it, which basically is being full of compassion, but empty of solutions. And that was an aha experience for me. I said, that's it, right? They don't need me to solve their problems. They want me to listen to them. And
that's right.
have I
Listening
been
is the
perfect
solution.
at it? Ever since, I have not been perfect at it. But whenever I try to go into problem solving mode, I immediately say compassion and emptiness. And, because that's the way it is. The people that report to you don't need you to solve their problems. They need you to listen to them.
Hmm.
Your kids don't need you to solve their problems. They need you to listen to them. And the
That's
same with
right.
your spouse.
That's right. Sometimes, yeah, the greatest solution is us being present and listening.
Present, yeah. And
Yeah. And it allows them to come to those conclusions,
yeah,
doesn't it? Sometimes where they need to discover the way forward, how to creatively problem solve. Sometimes they just need space,
yeah,
and they need somebody there that cares, that's going to show them love.
yeah.
Um, tell me a little bit. You mentioned it earlier, Howard, just about your daily practices, your routines, your affirmations. But tell me about the importance of that. I'm a big believer in the need to have particularly a powerful morning routine, and one that begins really before we go to sleep the night before. And I'm a believer in affirmations, right? And really being able to kind of tap into the belief that we have in ourselves, to continue affirming that we believe in ourselves. That's one thing that I mentioned earlier with my own story that really changed my life was when I discovered the world of personal development and growth and motivational speakers and coaches and mentors, I just became absolutely obsessed. And I'd have them in my ear from the moment I woke up to going to work, to doing chores before I went to sleep. And I had somebody in my ear pouring belief into me each day until I started to convince myself they were talking to me, right? That this Les Brown or
Yeah.
Tony Robbins or whoever it might be, I thought, you know what, these guys, they believe in me, and I need to believe in myself. But I know you mentioned with your affirmations that you use today, just continuing to pour belief into yourself and affirming those things. So tell me about your routine and the
Well,
importance of that.
every day I have the two most important affirmations I've told you, which is I love myself unconditionally. And I have that in my bathroom right across from my toilet. I always said, if you can love yourself sitting on the toilet, if you can love yourself unconditionally sitting on the toilet, you can love yourself anywhere. And, and then, I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. And then I have others that I have, you know, some are just around things that I want to accomplish. Like I could look and feel good at 155 pounds. It's been a while since I've been there, but I still know I look good and feel good at 155 pounds. I always complete that which I begin. and so I've been doing affirmations since my mid-20s, and they matter to me, and they make a difference in my life, and they support who I am and how I feel about myself. And human beings are incredibly fragile. Something goes wrong, we're sure that's the end of our lives. It'll always be wrong. Disaster. Something goes right. It's always going to be that way. Yeah, yeah, I'm a hero. I'm fantastic. It's not like that, right? It's like this. It's these up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And the key is to be in this mode of reminding yourself that you're okay. I call it the magic of believing, right? The magic of believing. And whatever you believe you can or can't do, you're right. And so the key is getting yourself to believe you can. And that requires daily affirmations that you're okay. I love myself unconditionally. Even when I screw up, I love myself. Do I get mad at myself? You bet. But I still love myself unconditionally. So, I think affirmations are important to me. Other people do different, people use prayer. It doesn't make any difference what you do for yourself, just do something for yourself. Some people, uh, you know, uh, you know, being physical in the morning is really important to them. They get up, they immediately got to get on a run, and that gets wherever they need to go and begins their day. Whatever works for you, do it. There's no rights, there's no wrongs. Just find a way to support yourself and support that journey towards fulfillment.
Love that. That's great. I mean, there's no right or wrong. That's some of the greatest advice, and so many of us can become the harshest critics in our life.
Yeah,
When we make mistakes or we don't do something right, or when we feel like we're not living up to our own performance, abilities and things like that. And it's such a good reminder, I think, for everybody to just know that, hey, you've got to learn to love yourself unconditionally, forgive yourself, and grow from those mistakes.
exactly.
I want to take it back around full circle to sort of where we began. We've touched on a lot of the personal elements of your own life. I've shared some of mine, and really, I think that there's a big gap right now, again, for organizations, whether it's big corporations or small businesses or nonprofits or academic institutions. I think there's a big gap from where they are and where their leadership is and where their people might be.
Yeah,
I think that it's showing up in a lot of ways where they can measure it through performance, difficult to retain good people, but really the source of it comes from people might be struggling, in their own personal lives right now, in the day-to-day things with depression and that sort of thing. So I personally believe, and you've outlined this, but the answer really being purpose and recognizing purpose, both for the organization and the people, and being able to share that together. But I want you to really speak to some of those leaders out there that have this opportunity to really connect with their people in a new way and really kind of set a new standard for what the culture can be. But they're hung up maybe on some of the old traditional ways of leading that when you talk about loving yourself, they just kind of reject that or
yeah,
put walls up, and and maybe they're too tough, right? And they don't want to be vulnerable in these types of ways where they really need to connect with people and understand maybe some of the struggles that their people are going through. What would you sort of suggest or recommend to, again, those leaders that kind of just have walls up around this idea? Share, if you would, just what that recommendation might be, but also when I introed you about what you did with Starbucks, there's no denying its effectiveness, but still so many leaders are resistant to it.
Well, people don't care how much you know, they want to know how much you care, right? And that's the root of it all. And the guy that's the CEO of Microsoft now, who turned Microsoft around, said the most important skill any leader can have is empathy. And it is absolutely true. Um, there are lots of leaders, coaches that think you got to pound people to get them to perform. And it's just not true, and that's a sickness that we have. that you've got to be tough on people to get them to work harder. People innately want to work harder, particularly if they understand and connect to the greater purpose of the organization. And that's a leader's responsibility, is to help people no matter what they do. A widget maker makes a widget that goes into a printing press, it gets sold to a publishing company, that produces a magazine or newspaper that gets delivered to somebody's home to inform or entertain them. The lowly widget maker has a role in informing or entertaining somebody. But we leaders don't help those people figure that out. It's not meaningless work making widgets. It has meaning and it has value and it adds value to the world. And so that's a real key, is helping people to connect to the greater purpose of the organization and making it their own. A, a leader's responsibility is to have empathy for their people, understanding people are human beings, they're not robots. Whenever I hear a leader say people are most important asset, I say they don't get it. People are not assets. You own assets. They're trucks, they're computers. You get in the truck, you turn the key, it starts up. People never give you what you expect. It's more, it's less, it's sometimes the same, whatever, but it's always different, right? And you have to have empathy for that. You have to understand they're imperfect beings, and they have their issues, they have their family problems, and might have illnesses or family illnesses or whatever. You don't know what's going on in their life. They come into work in the morning and who knows, maybe they just had a blowout with their wife, and they're not, as they walk through that door, great leaders smell it. And they don't say to their people, we'll leave all that stuff at home, because nobody leaves that stuff at home. Nobody. And when you're the boss and you have a problem like that, you can walk out of your office, go get your golf clubs, and that's okay. But most people can't do that. Barista working at Starbucks, if they've had a bad morning, they don't get to just pack up their bag and go home. They have to work, a shift and serving people. And so, and I found that if you put your antenna up and recognize where people are, and then ask them, how you doing today? Everything okay? Anything I can do to support you today? You'd be surprised how that helps people. And empathy, these are all words, but they have to turn into actions. Empathy, being vulnerable, that means showing of your fears, of your insight, and being authentic. Don't try to BS people. They smell when it's wrong. Just like your kids smell when you're not telling them the truth. They know, and so, those three things, empathy, brain dead, my brain just went, vulnerability and authenticity, and living your life full of compassion for others. I mean, that right. Creates a healthy organization. See, every organization has a culture. The question is, you have to ask yourself, is this the culture you want? And you have to be intentional about it. And then you can't fake it. Cultures are a direct reflection of the leaders of the organization. If you want a supportive, caring culture that has empathy for others, that's able to serve others, then you have to do that for your people. If you're a jerk, at least let everybody know I'm a jerk, right? And so we're gonna have a company full of jerks, and that's how we're gonna run this business. We're gonna be a jerk-led company. We're not gonna treat people with respect. And matter of fact, I'm gonna lie to you every day. At least be honest about it. Yeah. Better to know who you're working with than not.
That's right. I think, and you summed it up in a very famous quote, actually, that I think you have all the credit for, but that you were not in the coffee business serving people, but you're in the people business serving That's coffee. Right. And I think that just sums it up.
Get everybody to understand that. And it wasn't easy at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and another strategy that was, or a principle rather, that I know is very important was allowing the person, let me see if I could get this right, the person that's sweeping the floor to pick the broom. Is that right?
Yep. You hire great people, bring them in, tell them what the greater purpose of the organization is, what their role is, right? And then say, how can I help you? And here are we have 5 different brooms for you to choose from. Pick any one you want: a right-handed broom, a left-handed broom, a push broom, a straw broom, or a plastic brush broom. Pick any one you want. And then when they come 2 weeks later and tell you how excited they are about their work, and they had been on the internet and they found a broom that might increase their floor sweeping productivity by 10%, don't say no. Say, well, let's see, maybe we can get you one of those.
Absolutely. Well, and it shows them that you care and that you
It's more
value.
about what it takes to sweep a floor than the person that's doing it.
That's right. And for them to be appreciated, to be valued, to be recognized for their contribution, it's not just words that way. Like you said, it has to go beyond that. It has to show up in the actions. That's
Actions
right.
are the decisions you make.
That's absolutely right. I love it, Howard. Like I said, you've really changed the world. You're continuing to do that. You know, you've contributed to a purpose greater than yourself. You continue to do that every day. You continue to apply the principles of servant leadership and set that example for others. And again, I just want to personally thank you so much. I want to be respectful of your time, but I really want you to know how much of an impression that you've made on myself and just millions of other people around the world. I don't know if you are completely aware of that or not, or really allow yourself to receive that sort of
I
thing.
just don't go there. I appreciate I appreciate great feedback. Who doesn't? Right?
Yeah.
I just don't go there. I have one of my board of directors won't let me go there. I have one that'll always just tell me how great I am. Right. And I don't listen to that one. I listen to one that says, hey, Howard, humble, humble, humble. You're not that
That's
good.
right.
And, you know, I struggle enough just managing myself and leading
Yeah.
myself. And all I can do is put out things that I think about, the things that I believe in, that I've made work in my life, and everybody gets to choose whether it's right for them or not.
I love it. Well, you are a leader that other people want to follow, including people like myself, because of that, Howard, because
I appreciate it.
of who you are and just the life that you're continuing to live. So I'm truly grateful for you. I really am. I want to remind everybody to
Before
go
we
out and
get
get.
up, I want to say one more thing.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt you. So here's my cell phone number. It's 206 972 7776. It's 206 972 7776. And my email address, hb@howardbehar.com. If anybody calls or sends me a text or email, I'll get back to them. It may take me a while, but I always commit that I will eventually get back.
That's just incredible for anybody out there to have an opportunity like that to hear. I mean, sharing your number and connecting with people the same way that I was able to be connected with you. It's real, and your heart is real, the genuineness of it, and others can see that. I know that from our time together, our conversation today, that it comes from a genuine place. And that makes all the difference in the world, especially with where we are today in organizations and then in our home lives as well right now. It makes all the difference. Everybody pick up Howard's books. We've got It's Not About the Coffee. And then another parable. We didn't get into that one, but that's a great one. About the magic cup, and that's just a great one as well. So many good lessons to learn. Is there anything we can look forward to, Howard? Are you writing another book? Are you making any plans that we can expect to see you anywhere?
Well, as COVID dissipates a little bit, I'll start getting out there physically more. I haven't been, but I'll do that. I'm thinking about another book. I don't know yet whether I'm committed to it, and you have to commit. It's not a part-time job when you commit to doing a book, but we'll see. You know, I don't know if I have anything new to say, so we'll see.
Well, I know that we'll all look forward to it if you do. I'm looking forward to reading and consuming any content that you might be putting out. And I really want to let you know that my intention is to just share the legacy, of servant leadership. And I appreciate this time. This is a mentoring time for me. Again, you mentioned this earlier, but when we serve others, and that's the intention of the show, we can also be served. And I want to let you know that I'm being served in this. I'm learning, I'm growing from you, and I want to share that with others on their journeys as well. So thank you again so much. Truly grateful for you, Howard. Take care now.
Okay, take care.